Joe Norman, Tallahassee, Florida. I'm a victim of deeply embedded, widespread government corruption. As a Florida grand jury member, I have two documents that provide guidance on what we can do and what we're required to do. And I'll read Florida Statute 905.20. It says, quote, duty of a grand juror having knowledge of offense. A grand juror who knows or has reason to believe that an indictable offense triable within the county has committed shall report the information to the grand jury and may be sworn as a witness in the investigation. Now, I've described how, in my opinion, the Florida bar can be indicted as a criminal enterprise. I told the state attorney my intention. He says, summarize what you want to do and send it to me. Well, I did. Talked it over with the foreperson of the grand jury. And I first gave this talk to the foreperson, which is the procedure required. And he talked to the state attorney. In fact, one day I'm walking up to the two of them when they were apparently talking about my situation. And State Attorney Meg says, the Florida bar. What is the Florida bar? I said, well, it's an enterprise for purposes of the Florida RICO Act. He says. So I walk on. And then I'm told, to get a document together for him to review, which I did. At the next grand jury meeting, and my document was about 70 pages long, describing in some detail my logic in the law. Well, at the next meeting, he says, Mr. Norman, will you leave the room? I leave the room. In 14 minutes, he summarizes my entire document, reads the grand jury the law, gives them time to discuss it and vote in 14 minutes. Then he comes and gets me and he says, well, you didn't get the required number of votes. All right. Well, there is a protest procedure to invite the presiding judge to mediate issues between myself and the state attorney. I filed a protest, gave it to the foreperson on September 27th of this year. And I'll review a pertinent part of the Florida Grand Jury Handbook that I'm relying on. It says the grand jury, in addition to the duty of formally indicting those charged with crimes, has the further important duty of making investigations on its own initiative, which it will report as a presentment. This duty permits investigation of how public officials are conducting their offices and discharging their public trust. The grand jury may investigate as to whether institutions are being properly administered and conducted. It has the power to inspect those institutions, and if necessary, may call before the grand jury those in charge of the operations of the public institutions, as well as any other person who has information and can testify concerning them. If the grand jury finds that an unlawful, improper, or corrupt condition exists, it may recommend a remedy. Now, in this whole process, there's nothing that requires me to say squat to the state attorney. The state attorney is strictly on board to give legal advice. He's not there to do anything else. The law requires me to make the presentation to the grand jury. I have the authority according to law, but we've got a state attorney that's not going to let it happen. Since this letter went to the judge, we've had 2 grand jury meetings, and absolutely no comment has been made about my letter. We have one more in late November, and it's my supposition that they're just going to let it die and shirk their duties. Personally, I think they're interfering with the grand jury, and there must be some law that punishes those that do such. But, this is Florida. For 9 years, Florida has been on the annual American Tort Reform Association list of judicial hellholes. Now I ask you, if you were the CEO of a corporation looking to relocate, would you move to a judicial hellhole? Florida needs jobs. I mean, it's unbelievable what goes on. This is a fine example. This $50 million building. We've got problems, and nobody wants to look at them. You know, I contend the American taxpayer is funding the biggest cash for clunkers program in the history of the world. Our tax money pays the salaries of the members of the Department of Justice, the clunkers, the 11th U.S. Circuit, the clunkers, then the legislative branch of government, more clunkers. It's frustrating. On one hand, we're supposedly a nation of law that has the rule of law. On the other hand, it's merely a fallacy. And that's about all I have to say.